summer session, and I'm just excited about it. I want to thank everybody for joining. I know some more will join as we get started, but we have some great presenters today that are going to be talking with us in regards to local food purchasing, because that was what our first learning burst is on. And at this time, I would like to turn everything over to Dr. Dara Bloom, who will introduce our speakers today.
Thanks, Shonda. Yeah, we're really excited to kick off the learning burst with, we're going to have 3 learning bursts in a row about local food purchasing. So we're going to start today with kind of actually what happens after you purchase, and you've got local food coming in and ideas about preparation and storage. And then next week, we're going to talk a little bit, we'll learn a little about the history of food and farming in each of the counties that are participating in the project. And then the final week, June 15th, we will learn a little bit about what a food hub is and specifically about some food hubs in the counties that we're working with. So we're hoping that one of the things that you might learn from this project, if you don't already know, is just how amazing cooperative extension is. So today I'm really excited to be able to invite the Family and Consumer Science Agents, our FCS agents, who are joining us on this project in the different counties who are involved. So we've got Ashley Beard-Silve in Lee County, Janice Roberts in Moore County, Regina Mosley in Nash and Edgecombe, Courtney Teepeepaw in Wilkes County, and Michelle Estrada in Wayne County. So they're an amazing group, and I am just going to turn it over. And thank you all so much for being here today.
All right, I'll go ahead and get us started. I'm Courtney Teepeepaw, and I'm in Wilkes County. And I'm just going to speak to you all a few minutes about storing produce, because we're thinking about what happens next with the food that you purchase or grow. So what are the next steps after you get it? And we can move to the next slide. So again, we are just going to think through, we bought this local food or we're starting to plan for local food, but we need to plan for how we're going to store it properly to ensure that we have proper food safety and sanitation. So let's move on to the next one. And I just have a little discussion. So if you all can share in the chat box what you are doing currently or maybe planning to do as along the lines of incorporating local foods. So as we move forward through this session, just consider these foods that you plan to have and how they can be properly stored and prepared. So y'all can share that in the chat box, or you are welcome to unmute and share as well. But we would just like to hear from you what you're planning on buying or what you might be growing or planning, hoping to grow at the gardens at your center this year. And I'll give y'all just a moment to share that. Okay, I see growing tomatoes and cabbage. Cool, we'll talk about how to store that. Carrots and zucchini. Zucchini is one of my favorites. I'm currently growing squash, cucumbers, tomatoes, watermelon, and cantaloupe. So y'all are going to have a lot to choose from. Okay, thanks for sharing, y'all. We can go ahead and keep moving forward. Thank you. So as y'all can see from the folks that shared in the chat, everyone is at different levels and we're all incorporating different types of local foods. So just remember that if you are new to purchasing local food or growing, wherever you're at in your journey, just remember to begin where you are. So think about where you can start purchasing. You might already be purchasing from an organization or a distributor that has local foods. So it's possible that you simply need to identify the local food that they have on hand. And then you may need to start encouraging the vendors or the companies that you're working with that you're interested in purchasing local and to ask them to source more locally produced foods. I mean, it's likely that you're not their only client that is interested in this, but this has been a way that some of our childcare centers in Wilkes have been able to incorporate local food onto the menu by just identifying those things that were with their distributor that they could easily incorporate into meals and snacks. So also start small, just begin with a couple of items. You could just try adding one new food a month, or if you do have a little garden or a small garden within the center, just try to start with using some of that produce that you're growing in some snacks. And then as you expand and learn more, it definitely will get easier over time. And the third tip to remember when you are getting started is that fruits and vegetables are a simple way to start, and milk is also a very easy way to just start incorporating, because you don't have to really prep the milk. You can just purchase it and have it ready to go. So these are ways to incorporate foods and ways to get you started thinking about it. And we do have a couple of resources for getting started. I will share all this with our folks with, oh gosh, sorry, I lost my train of thought, but I will share all these resources at the end. And let's move on to the next slide. And next part is more about keeping this produce fresh. So this is a really good visual that I found through the Go Knapsack portal, and I can share this with you all as well. But it just gives a visual of how you store certain foods from the counter, the freezer, the fridge, and the pantry. But we will go into a little bit more depth in this. But y'all might be wondering, why is this so important to keep food fresh? So food is affected by air, moisture, temperature, light, microbial growth. And we want to delay these foods from going bad by storing them correctly. We want to extend that shelf life as long as possible so that we can reduce food waste, but also it's easier on our wallet if we're able to store foods longer. We're not having to throw them out, because essentially throwing out food is throwing out money. So if you think about it that way, it makes you really consider the way we're storing food, or if something starts to go bad, maybe throw it in the freezer and use it at a different time. So let's go to the next slide and see how we are going to break down storing these different types of produce. So just a few tips for refrigerator storage when it comes to fruit, and then we'll explore vegetables. A few things you would want to store in the refrigerator are things like apples, if you're going to be keeping them for an extended period of time. The same goes for citrus if you're going to be keeping them for more than 7 days. Other things like berries, cherries, figs, grapes, and definitely cut fruits. All these different types of fruits need to be stored in the refrigerator for optimal safety. You can store them in perforated plastic bags to keep them fresher, longer. And if you don't have a plastic bag like this, you can make your own by taking like a medium size, just plastic produce bag that you may get from the grocery store and putting about 20 holes, little pinholes in it. And then put your apples inside that, for example, and put it in the crisper drawer, and that'll extend the shelf life of them. Store fruits and vegetables in separate drawers. This will help to minimize damage from ethylene. If you've heard of this chemical, it's just a gas that's produced by fruits, and it can cause vegetables to decay quicker. So we do want to store our fruits and vegetables separately. And then another tip for you is to use refrigerated fruits and vegetables within a few days, just to maximize their flavor and their freshness. You can store them longer, but they are going to decrease in their flavor as time goes on. And let's skip to the next slide here. Okay, so storing vegetables, same tips go as far as storing vegetables in the refrigerator, but a few different ones that you may want to remember are things like cabbage and carrots, cut vegetables, again, so any cut fruits and any cut vegetables go into the refrigerator. Green beans, summer squash, spinach, lettuce, leafy greens, most any herbs, mushrooms, sprouts, sweet corn, these all need to be stored in the refrigerator. And you've heard me say cut vegetables and cut fruit a couple of times already. So it depends on the state that the produce is in. And that's why I kind of tried to put an emphasis on the cut vegetable or fruit. So an uncut vegetable or fruit oftentimes could be left out at room temperature. Say an example of this is a tomato, perfectly fine at room temperature on the counter, or a melon, like a watermelon, could be left out on the counter. But once these fruits or vegetables are cut into, they are opened up to a world of being introduced to bacteria and an opportunity for all that nasty stuff to grow. So once, say, you cut into a tomato or cut up a watermelon, then it definitely needs to be stored in the refrigerator after to prevent any type of microbial growth from happening. And it's going to help it stay fresh much longer. And we'll go to the next slide. So we'll talk about produce that you may store on the counter and then move it on into the refrigerator. So some fruits that are best left out on the counter to ripen and then moved into the refrigerator to extend their shelf life. They're going to taste a lot better. If you stick them right into the refrigerator first, they may not ripen that well and they may not taste that good. So some things that are an example of this are things like avocado, kiwi, peaches, plums, pears, and plum cots. And firsthand experience, I've seen this with peaches. They taste so much better if you leave them out on the counter for a little while to let them ripen. They also taste better when they're warm, in my opinion, versus super cold in the refrigerator. But once they've started to ripen on the counter and gotten to that maximum ripeness, they can be put in the refrigerator for a while longer. So a few tips with using these types of fruits. Do ripen fruits away from sunlight, and you can increase or speed up this process by putting them in something like a paper bag or just putting them in a fruit bowl on the counter, that's like an open ventilated bowl. If you want to speed up the ripening process even quicker, you can also put an apple in with the fruit because that is going to cause the fruit to speed up quick, but you do have to pay attention to it and not let it sit for too long before it becomes bad. And let's go on to the next slide. We will talk briefly about room temperature storage of fruits and vegetables. So a couple of tips with storing fruits at room temperature. Always place these fruits away from direct sunlight, same as within the last slide, and then keep them in a well-ventilated bowl as well to reduce moisture loss and spoilage. So fruits that may be best at room temperature would be apples if you are using them within 7 days or less. So if you're using them in a very short period of time, otherwise just stick them in the refrigerator. Bananas, same goes with that. And citrus, if you're using them within 7 days, you can put those out on the counter. Again, with the citrus, just like the apples, if you plan on using them later than 7 days, then just stick them in the refrigerator and that'll keep them fresher longer. Things like mangoes, melons, persimmons, pineapple, all of those types of fruits do just fine out at room temperature and you can store them that way. And we'll move on to the next slide, please. As far as vegetables go, there are things like potatoes, obviously onions that do well, winter squashes that are best stored at room temperature. Of course, they're better stored in a cooler area and a dry area as well, but they're at room temperature. Cucumbers, eggplant and peppers, pumpkins and tomatoes, these all fall under that category of being at room temperature storage. Another one is basil. You can keep basil in water out on the counter, and cucumbers. And one thing I will add about the herbs, since I just mentioned basil, If you have fresh cut herbs, you can always take them and stick them in like a large mason jar. Just stick the ends in the mason jar full of water and cover them with like a plastic bag and stick the herb in the refrigerator, say if it's like parsley, and that will extend the shelf life on it as well. So that's something I often do, because if I purchase, say, a bunch of parsley or cilantro, I usually am not going to use all that at one time. So I always try to extend the shelf life on it by storing it in water, and in that case, in the refrigerator. But you can definitely store your basil in water out on the counter. A couple more tips. Cucumbers, eggplants, and peppers can be refrigerated for 1 to 3 days, and if they are used soon after removing from the refrigerator. So this will just help it to taste better if they're stored for a shorter time in the refrigerator. And then also, when thinking about potatoes and onions, do remember to store these separately to increase their shelf life. And I figured this out the hard way. In my own home, where I've stuck like my onions and potatoes, I just kind of threw them in to the pantry after coming home from the grocery store, and then they tend to they don't marry well together. So separate them within your pantry. And finally, on the next slide, since we are talking about how to store different fruits and vegetables, I also want to remind everyone how to keep that food safe during storage and after. So when you're cooking and things like that, but we'll talk about storage. So do keep fruits and vegetables separate from raw meat, poultry, and seafood. So you may have heard the term clean, separate, cook, and chill, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit. Always separate those. Something I always like to do is to put my raw meats at the very bottom of the refrigerator. A lot of times I even will leave them in the plastic bag that they came home from the grocery store in, just as an extra layer of protection. And then I store my produce on a separate layer of the refrigerator above that raw meat, so that it's not going to be coming into contact with each other. Keep your hands clean, the work area clean, anything that's going to come into contact with the food. So always wash hands in hot soapy water, and tools and utensils in the work area. Do be sure to wash produce before eating it with running water. So that's one thing that kind of goes unnoticed when we purchase food, say from the farmer's market. It's not technically ready to eat. It's sold to us with the expectation that we will wash it before eating. So before eating produce or serving produce, do make sure to wash it with just cool running water, and then like cut away any damaged areas before eating. But be sure not to use detergent or bleach to wash fruits and vegetables. We saw a lot of this, especially during COVID, with folks just being worried about the foods that we were getting from the grocery store, and they had well reason to be worried. But there were all these fruit and vegetable washes that were promoted, and those could actually be harmful. They could introduce like harmful cleaners to our food. So we only want to use fresh, clean water to clean our produce. Another couple things about washing produce: if you are buying packaged fruits and vegetables that are labeled ready to eat, washed, or oftentimes we might buy bagged salad mixes that say that they're triple washed. There's no need to rewash those fruits and vegetables. If they come that way, then they are ready to eat. And then finally, do be sure to refrigerate cut, peeled, and or cooked produce within 2 hours of the time of preparation. And we will move to the last slide in my set, just for another quick discussion. So let's think through your plans. What foods will you be serving in the near future? And with that, how should these foods be stored, or how might you think they'll be stored? We talked about that pretty quickly. but we will share a produce storage guide with all of y'all to make this whole process much easier. So if you do have plans, or you can think of a food that you might be using, you can drop it in the chat box, and you can also drop how you're going to store it once you get it, or once you say harvest it from the school garden. Oh yeah, good comment, Stacy. She said she always left her apples on the counter, but it's good to know they can be put in the refrigerator to stay fresh. So I actually know folks that keep their apples in the refrigerator for months at a time, which if y'all think about it, apple season is in the fall, but we can still purchase apples at the grocery store in May. So those have been in refrigerator storage all that time as well. And you can definitely do the same thing at home. Sweet potatoes, a cool, dry, dark spot. Yes. Cool, cool. Thank y'all for sharing. And we will provide this information at the end for everybody to use later. So I'm going to hand it over to our next presenter so that y'all can talk about how to prepare foods.
All right, guys. My name is Janice Roberts from Moore County, and I'm going to talk a little bit about preparation and reducing food waste. So when it comes to preparing fruits and vegetables, we were going to make sure that we washed them. And like Courtney said, we're not going to use any cleaners or anything, just water. But there are some items where we want to use a vegetable brush, like our tough skin fruits, like our cantaloupes and melons, our cucumbers, sweet potatoes. Using a vegetable brush to really kind of get those clean and dry before we prep them. Not using soaps or detergents. And then some of our more delicate fruits, like our blackberries, strawberries, soaking them for a few minutes in water before we dry and serve them. Any cooked vegetables that we use, like if you want to make a pan of roasted vegetables, we cook those to 135 degrees Fahrenheit. And then anytime we've reheated foods, anytime, no matter if they're just fruits and vegetables or what, we want to have them temp at 165 for 15 seconds. The pathogenic bacteria that we normally are worried about when reheated grow quicker than when they're raw. So we want to make sure that everything is reheated properly. Next slide. Okay, so I'm also going to go over some of the guidance for food preparation for serving local foods in centers. And the first question is, what are the specific requirements for food preparation equipment related to fresh produce? And that is going to be determined by your individual health departments based on the amount and type of produce to be prepared. So if you have any questions about whether or not you have enough storage and sink space to prepare and wash your produce, please contact your county's environmental health specialist. Some of the things that they will consider when you reach out for them will be your dishwashing activities, where the produce will be stored prior to handling, if refrigeration space is adequate, does the sink have an air gap, what is the volume of produce that you prepare during the day, is preparation taking class in the classroom, and whether or not cleaning and sanitizing procedures for sinks and drain boards used for processing fresh produce. Okay, next one. And then preparation of raw produce. So are there any additional rules or specific guidance about food preparation specific to raw vegetables and fruits, whether they are grown in the child care center garden or purchased locally? So the guidance provided in the Federal Food Code states that once cut, leafy greens, tomatoes, and melons are considered potentially hazardous foods. So centers should be aware that those foods must be properly handled and stored in the refrigerator once cut. So again, consulting with your environmental health specialist on those foods and any other questions that you have. Next. And are there any rules that prohibit on-site childcare gardens? And I know they'll do learning bursts on gardens, but just as a quick note, since I know many of you are trying to get those started now, you can have gardens to grow your produce. But there are certain things that you want to consider, such as not placing it next to the base of the building, and worrying about termite or pesticide use. Want to make sure that it's in a safe spot, making sure you're not using hazardous materials to build your garden, and being mindful of harvested ripened fruits and vegetables to prevent them from falling to the ground and attracting scavenger animals. So making sure that you're getting your produce regularly and not letting it rot on the ground. Also making sure that when handling the produce that the children wash their hands every time, and that you're not placing the gardens over septic drains. And then can you have a compost? And this is a great way to reduce food waste, especially since you don't want to use pesticides or fertilizers in your garden. You can start a compost bin and make sure that it's covered, or you can also just put it in a bag and then put it in your freezer so that it's not causing too many issues. And then can you prepare produce in the classroom? So like if you want to cut some apple slices and share it with an activity, you can do that provided that you're following safe food prep practices, that all the produce was washed, your hands are clean, and you have a clean service to prepare the food. So as long as you're following food safe practices, you can prep food in the classroom. And then preventing food waste. So there's several ways where consumers can lead to producing more food waste. And some of that is the lack of awareness of information and knowing how to properly store and use up food. There's also confusion over date labels. And even though with your fresh produce, you're not going to have those labels if you're getting them from the farmer's market or your garden, but there are several labels that people get confused by. So like, is it best by, sell by, or used by? Many people think that they all mean that after that date, you need to throw that food away. Really, best by and sell by dates are quality signifiers where manufacturers guaranteed the quality of that food until that date. And then afterwards, it's still good for a little while, but they just want to get it out of the store by that point. And like canned foods still say best by. As long as that food has never been tampered with, it should be safe for a long time. But the quality is only guaranteed till that time. Use by dates tell us when to discard food. So typically you'll see those on meats. If you see a use by date, throw the food away after that time. You also want to make sure that you're putting labels and dates on your foods. So making sure to, you can note when it was purchased, when it was prepped, and then count days after that, or you could label it the day that it has to be tossed. So when you put it in the freezer to extend the life of that produce, then labeling it when you got it or when it needs to be tossed. And then Courtney gave a lot of great ideas for storing the foods that you're receiving and making sure that you're using it up within 7 days after it's gotten into the refrigerator or been prepped in some way. If you don't think that you'll use it, throw it in the freezer and use it at a later time. Another thing you want to do is do a first in, first out. So we use that term a lot with canned foods or dry goods, but with fresh produce, make sure you're using your fresh produce that you have out first, and then reaching into your dry storage for like sweet potatoes or your freezer storage. And then also make sure that you're planning your meals and order the correct amount that you needed. I know a lot of people are doing bulk orders, and if you have any issues with trying to having recipes to use those items up, please let us know. But making sure that you're doing a good job of planning and knowing what you need first, and using the tools that the Farm to ECE team created with that spreadsheet is a great way to do that. And then like bulk purchases, like I said, let us know if you need help with recipes to use things up, or just throw it into the freezer until you can use it again. And then you might have issues with like zucchini in your garden. That's something that once you get it, you get too much. So let us know. And that goes for overproduction as well. All right, next slide. So also use your meal planning tips to make sure you can use up your produce and not have to throw it away. So don't start from scratch. Check your fridge, your pantry, your garden, whatever you have before you order more food. Make sure you're planning your portions out correctly with the spreadsheet planner, and having your kitchen essentials on hand. Choose different building blocks and think double duty for some things, and rethinking your leftovers. And like I said before, first in, first out, go with what you have fresh first and what's going to go bad first before reaching into your pantry or your freezer. But do use a lot of your frozen ingredients. You can either freeze the ingredients, or you can make a big batch of like egg muffins or zucchini blueberry muffins and freeze those, and then take them out individually. Okay, next. All right, so what if things do start getting moldy? Are they safe to eat? So the answer is no. So some molds produce toxins, and then they're not destroyed during cooking. And when it comes to moldy fruits and vegetables, some with high moisture can penetrate the skin. So cutting off a little piece of it is not going to be enough to make it safe. So you can throw those away, or like I said, if you start a compost bin, that's a great way to use those. And that way you're still getting the benefits of the produce, just in a different way.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Regina Mosley, the Family and Consumer Science Agent with Nash and Edgecombe counties. And I'm going to be talking with you about using your local foods and meals and snacks. And through this, some of the things that we're going to look at is how we can use the local foods for meals and snacks in your classrooms, use them as a teaching aid as well. We're going to look at some books and how we can relate them to the books that we're reading to the students. And we're going to do a fun physical activity with a fruit and veggie workout that you can do with your students. And then we're going to lead you through a mindfulness eating experience as well. So next slide. So there are many ways to incorporate local food into classroom lessons. Again, one of my favorite ways is to use what we call the taste and tales way. I know when I go into the classrooms and teach, this is my favorite thing to do, is I always take a book and then whatever food is related in that book, then we'll do a sample based upon that. And my favorite book, as you can see on this slide, is I Will Never Not Ever Eat a Tomato. So if you can do this with a British accent, it's so much more fun to read it that way too. So that's just something fun to do. But if you've never read that book, and I'm sure most of you had, it's just about this little girl that's a picky eater and she doesn't want to eat anything. And she goes through, I'm not going to eat this, I don't like that. Well, be creative in the way. So maybe your green peas, maybe they won't eat green peas, but maybe they'll eat moondrops from the sky. They're green peas, but you're calling them something different, so they might want to eat those. We're also going to, again, we're going to walk through a fruit and veggie workout that you can do with your students. And then I'm going to lead you again through a mindful eating experience. So the first thing we're going to do, like I said, my favorite book is that I Will Never Not Ever Eat a Tomato. So with that one, so let's say you have cucumbers on your local foods planning list. You have that in your center at the point and you want to use those. So one thing that we can do, and you can go to the next slide, is we're going to make a cucumber stack. And this is something that you can do with your students. It's real simple. And I'm going to aim my camera down. So hopefully you can see my hands in the food. So for this, all you'll need for each student is a cutting board. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, just a small cutting board, a plastic little knife if you can use those, one slice of bread per student, a slice of cucumber per student. So you're going to already have this sliced up, a tablespoon of cream cheese or hummus or some healthy spread that you like or the students like, and a variety of fun cookie cutters. And this is going to be, each student will have that. So all you do is you take your bread, and we're going to pick the airplane today because I feel like I want to go on a trip. And we're going to mash this right down in here. And we're just going to cut a little airplane shape out of our bread. You're just going to pop it out. And this is fun. And it's easy. And, you know, the kids can do this, no problem. I'll put my piece of bread over there. And then you just let them spread their tablespoon. And I'm using cream cheese. So we're going to do, and this is just plain cream cheese. And we're just going to spread it onto our little airplane here. And then they just take their little slice of their cucumber and they just place it right on. And they have a cute little snack. And they can fly to wherever they might want. They want to fly to the moon to get some of the moon peas that they have or moon drops, whatever. You know, they could do something like that. Just be fun and creative with it. I mean, that's just one simple and easy snack treat that you can do, something that you can do with the students in the classroom. It can be, they can make more than one if you have, you know, more available than that. So that's just something easy. It's fun. Today in the office, when I was prepping for this, everybody was making them a little snack. So we had fun with the cookie cutters here in the office. So that was fun today. Okay, next slide. So some of the resources, one of the things that you are going to want to do is you're going to want to send some resources home for your parents so they'll know what's going on in your center. So like with our little cucumber snack that we made, just send the recipe home. You know, it can be typed up. That's actually printable off of the Growing Minds site. So you just print that off and send it home with them. Also, our Steps to Health program with NC State University, we have what we call the Harvest of the Month. And anyone, you know, you just go to that website and you can download these. So if you might have blueberries that you're using a lot of at your center, so print that Harvest of the Month off and you can see it gives you nutrition facts about blueberries. It tells you a recipe and just other ways to handle, like how to handle them, how to freeze them, how to grow them, things like that. So that's something interesting that your parents may want as well. Also, if you are connected to your local farmer that's providing some of that local food, ask them to come in if they can and talk with your students once in a while, or have, you know, maybe a handout from the local farm to where this food is coming from and send that home to the parents as well. That way you can share the farmer's information or the food co-op information, whatever you may be getting. So I think we've all been listening for a while. So another fun activity that you can do with local food is a fruit and veggie workout. And I love to work with this age group of children. So I have lots of fun ideas. And this is one of my favorite things is our fruit and veggie workout. So if you want to turn your cameras on, you can. So hop up and stand up and join me, because all this is real simple. So we're going to take our cucumber, for instance. So our cucumber, what does it grow on? Does it grow on a vine? Does it grow on a tree? Does it grow on a bush? So if it grows on a vine, we're going to wiggle like a vine. If it grows on a tree, you stand straight and tall as high as you can. If it grows on a bush, you just stand like a statue. And if it grows underground, this is where we're going to get our squats in. You're going to go down to the ground and then hop back up. So a cucumber, where does it grow? A vine, a bush, or yeah, it grows on a vine. So we're going to be a vine. What about a blueberry? Where does a blueberry grow? Bush, tree, ground. A bush, yeah, so we'll be a bush. Yep, so be like a statue. Yep. And sometimes you'll forget what you told them to do, and you'll have to remember, yeah, that was what we're supposed to do. What about a carrot? Where's the carrot grow? Underground, so we're going to get down. Good job. So you get the idea. So that's pretty simple. It's easy, and the kids love it because it gives them up, moving, and they enjoy it, and they're learning how it grows. So this is something that could be done outside too. So if you are one of the centers that will have a garden, you could do this in the garden as well. But that's just one of my favorite things to do with the littles. Let's see. And another part is when they are taste testing, you want to make sure that, and you can move to the next slide, I'm sorry. As you want to do, make sure they're eating mindfully. So not only do our students need to be eating mindfully, but we as adults, we need to be eating mindfully as well. So I'm going to lead you through a quick mindfulness eating experience. So whatever you have around you, if it's a piece of candy, that's okay. I want you to grab whatever you have, and we're going to go through this quick little mindful eating experience. So if you were a student and we were using our cucumber, what we're going to do is we're going to look at it. Don't let them put it in their mouth yet, but you want them to look at it. What color is it? What shape do you see? Is it a circle? Is it a triangle? So you want them to think about what they're eating as well. And then you want to get them to listen to it. Does it make noise? Does your food make a sound? Let them touch it. Now tell them, okay, let's explore it even more. Let's touch it. How does it feel? Is it smooth? Is it bumpy? Is it rough? And then we're going to go to our smell sense, and we're going to say, what kind of scent does it have? Does it smell? Does it have a fragrance? Does it, is it plain smelling? So what does it smell like? And then after they've done all that, then you say, now you get to taste it. So if you're participating, go ahead and put your food in your mouth. Don't chew it yet. I just want you to hold it there. Now start chewing. Think about what you're chewing. Is it crunchy? Is it soft? Does it taste different than it did when you first put it in your mouth? So you want them to think about all of these things. So you wanted to see how, and then you tell them it's okay to swallow. More than likely, they're going to go ahead and put it in their mouth before you get through all of those steps, but you just go along and go as long as you can. The three main reasons that we do mindful eating is for physical hunger, psychological hunger, or our environment. So we tend to eat because either we're physically thinking we're hungry, but it's not necessarily that we are hungry. And so when we're mindfully eat, we think more about why are we eating? Are we eating because we're hungry, or are we just eating because we think we're supposed to be eating? And teaching children at a young age to be more mindful about their eating experience will help them as adults as well. So this is not only something for our little ones in class or at our centers, but it's also something good for us to follow up as well. All right, and I think that's the end.
So I'm going to be moving into our next section. And Regina had already talked a little bit about it, just some resources for parents, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into parts of the Go Knapsack self-assessment about engaging families and increasing your communication strategies about the local foods that you're using in your center. So just as a start, if you'll go back to the discussion one real quick. So if y'all can put into the chat box the ways that your center is already engaging families in local foods, and what your current communication strategies may be, what forms that you do communicating to the adults, to people in your community, kind of what are you that spreading that awareness. So I see a lot of Facebook posts. Yes. And we'll talk about some strategies as well. So we're opening the food purchasing to parents through the child care centers. For outreach, we have flyers and posters that will go out next week. That's really awesome to hear. And handouts, fruit and veggies, and trying to send recipes home. Well, y'all can keep adding them in there because I think it's a good culture to create that we're in this collaborative all together, even though we're not in the same counties. We can learn from other counties on what everyone's doing differently. I think that's really awesome about this Farm to EC collaborative is you can take it and you can spin it and you can be as interactive as you want to, and innovative and crafty with what you're doing with your Farm to EC program. So if you'll just go to the next slide. So we'll start off with just some ways that we can be increasing Farm to EC local foods communication. So the one big key thing is to be consistent and persistent. So being consistent with, that weekly posting or, electronically, whether it's Facebook, emails, if you're doing newsletters, you could do monthly ones or quarterly, whatever you feel like that would be manageable. I know we all have really busy schedules, but just having a consistent schedule and being persistent, because I am one that works off of someone just really constantly knocking that door at me helps me a lot. And then just really sharing the successes to your families in your center. So update them on the positive changes that you're seeing in their kids. So from the Go Knapsack website, there's, you can send home badges about mealtime accomplishment. So the name of the vegetable that they tried today, you can include it. They can send it home. The centers in Lee County were doing the Color Me Healthy one, and they love the I tried a new fruit or a fruit and veggie sticker. They love getting those at the end of the session. And a lot of times I hear them, I really want one to take home to my mom. I want to share them kind of deal. So they love that. And, it's great to share the successes to the families. Again, utilize electronic services such as Facebook page. I know one of our centers in Lee County, Stepping Stones, they do a lot of Facebook posts about their foods that they have trying, their activities that they're doing. That's a really great way to engage the families, but also the community. And at the bottom, it says seek out to local newspapers to spread awareness of your efforts. That's always a option. I think everyone can agree that would be something that everyone's interested in seeing in the newspaper. Who wouldn't love to see adorable kids and what they're doing to learn about local foods and this initiative? And I know our local newspaper is a huge supporter of that. So I'd really suggest seeking out the local newspapers to spread awareness of your efforts. You could also, I saw in the comments, I think someone said that they do bulletin boards, but you can make current Farm to ECE bulletin boards that catches the eyes of the adults when they're in the center, make it really interactive for the kids. And then really just with these communication efforts, can really help the families use this as jumping off points at home, providing them with tips on engaging what the children learned in the center and further expand it on at home. That's really important in that next stage, because we know families are the number one teachers for kids. And so it's important to help our families, your families, feel confident in, expanding the work that you're doing at the center as well. And if you can go to the next slide. And I saw in the comment box that some people are trying to do, send home the recipes or the menu for the week. And it's a really great way to let the families know what local foods you're serving. So you could have the menus and then highlight what the local foods you're using, and then also provide that local foods recipe for families. And this is where I really, I think it'd be a really cool idea to get the kids involved, maybe make a cookbook. Have the kids make a cookbook that they could then take home for their parents, have them draw out the vegetables, the food product, and have them, I remember, I'm pretty sure my mom has all of my first grade cookbooks that we did. I know my recipes were pizza, but it would be a very good interactive way and another option for getting those recipes to the families. But you can go on to the next slide. So another part is activities to connect families to local foods. And Regina did mention, connecting those families to the farmers and connecting them to the co-op. But this is really where we want to view the families as partners in your farm to ECE effort. In order for children to grow up healthy, it's important that they adopt that healthy habits, whether they're at the childcare centers, the schools, the home. And we see that families are children's first and very important teachers and role models. So that repetition of healthy behaviors in multiple environments helps those behaviors stick as children grow. So it's just as important that we teach the kids this farm to ECE mindset, but also to be reaching out to our families to start adopting it as well. So y'all have those relationships with the families, and you're in a position to engage them as partners to support healthy habits and this farm to ECE work. So that's really important, get them connected to a community supported agricultural program, Sandhill Farm to Tables. I'd heard possibly maybe opening up to families to also get their orders in weekly. And then I think some other activities to connect families to local foods and get them engaged to what you're doing is to organize some family days, possibly. So maybe local foods potlucks or a luncheon. You could have craft nights and present creative ideas that families can do for gardening or cooking. Again, cooking classes, or open up those taste tests for families to come. Maybe it's when they're picking them up at the end of the day, just invite them to stay a little bit for a cooking class or a taste test, and to really unify that family in this learning experience. You could also offer workshops and learning opportunities for just the adults. It really helps with that confidence level, that, the tips for engaging the children at home is another option for connecting families to local foods. And then I just love that video that Steph's has on their website about the kids and having that farmers market simulation, inviting the families in. And if you haven't seen that video, I have it linked right here, but that's just an amazing one. And just to showcase what the kids are learning. Another one, create a local food committee within the center. So this could be maybe teachers that are part of the collaborative or have a really are passionate about this farm to EC local foods work, or families that really want to share their ideas or be involved. This local food committee could be tasked with sharing ideas and discovering valuable resources or planning those activities. And then it's can be important to involve the families in strategic planning for what you're doing in your centers for the farm to ECE and this mealtime as well. So we threw out a lot of a lot of resources at y'all today that we will gladly share with y'all. A lot of them, I know the ones that I did were found on the Go Knapsack website, and so there's just pages and pages of websites up there with just ideas. Reach out to us if you have any ideas or you need just help envisioning how an activity could go, or you need help with an activity. I know I'm here in Lee County, so I'm very willing to do that. But if not, the last slide is just asking if y'all have any questions or if we need to clarify any part. And I will say, I love what Regina said about the veggie workout. We did our last session yesterday for our centers in Color Me Healthy. We did activity on a farm. So it was in their workbooks, but I had them get up and do the activities that you can find on a farm. So we were milking the cows and chasing our chickens and picking our broccoli up and cutting our wheat. And so the kids loved that, and it got a lot of energy out.
I want to thank you all so much for all the wonderful information and everything. And again, just open up the floor. We have some minutes left. So if anyone has any type of questions, you can put it in the chat or ask one of our presenters directly. That is okay.
Yes, this is Barbara from the Kids Activity.
Hi, Barbara. There's a little static. If you're talking, we can't hear you right now. Are you able to use the chat box or? Can anyone else hear, or is it just me? Okay, she just clicked off by accident. It's probably Zoom. That's what happened this morning. Zoom monsters are doing their thing. So we'll give her a few seconds, see if she'll get back on. But again, I want to thank you, ladies, and want you to know also we recorded this. And so it will go and be housed in our learning.
I was I just wanted to say the activities that Ashley were talking about, milking the cow and chasing the chickens, the kids really did enjoy doing that yesterday. They continued to do that after she left.
Good.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to do with them. I know one of the teachers was like, we're going to continue to do this because just how much energy they exerted. But it was definitely really cute to watch.
You guys are gonna have to send us pictures on that so we can use it.
Yeah, I think we took a few pictures yesterday. I'll see if I can find them.
Now, someone put in the chat box if we will receive the copy of this PowerPoint. And certainly, I think.
Yes, we'll make sure that you receive that with the follow-up information. Emma is actually going to drop into the survey, and once you complete the survey, then you will receive your training certificate. Was that correct, Emma? Okay, she gave me the thumbs up. She gives me thumbs up, then that means I'm okay. I have to go by what she's telling me. So yes, and again, if you do go to the CEF's website and go under Farm to ECE or Farm to Early Care and Education, you will see that on the left-hand side, we do have a list of different resources, and we do have one for Learning Burst. So we do have all of our Learning Bursts up there. Some may have the same titles, but just know that they're not the same information. So each year it's been a little bit different in adding on so that we can truly have a resource library for all of you that are so into helping us with this initiative. So yes. So does anyone else have any other questions? And if you see in the chat here, Emma just dropped the evaluation. So if you don't mind clicking on that and just taking a couple of seconds or minutes to fill that out, we would greatly appreciate it. And if that is all, if no one else has anything, again, thank you so much, Courtney. Thank you, Regina. Thank you, Ashley. So much appreciated everything that all of you ladies did for us today. And these are our extension agents. So they are here, they are out. So you can, I forgot somebody, I'm sorry. And I forgot.
Was it Janice?
Yes.
Janice Roberts.
Okay, your picture's off. Okay, that's why I'm sorry. And Janice, thank you as well for today. So please reach out to them within your counties, or just if you want information, but they're here, they're diehard Farm to ECE people. So we love them, couldn't do this without you. And just want to say thank you to everyone and have a great rest of your day.